What's up, everyone? Welcome to TeamB Wrestling. This will be a solo show, looks like. And I'm just going to talk about greatest WrestleMania moments, in my opinion. Let me see. Throughout my life, I've been to one WrestleMania, and that was a dream come true because all through my life, growing up, I always wanted to go to a WrestleMania, at least one of them. And unfortunately, but fortunately, I attended WrestleMania 27. Not the best WrestleMania by no means, but so that's unfortunate. But fortunately, I went. I actually went to WrestleMania, so I was very excited about that. I went by myself. You know, it was just a timing thing because tickets were sold out. It was in the Georgia Dome, Atlanta, Georgia, WrestleMania 27. Tickets sold out. Now, I pretty much, given up on going. And it was a few days before the event took place. And I checked Ticketmaster one last time, and they had just a few tickets left. I said, okay, actually quite a few tickets, I'll say. About 50 tickets or so, maybe 50 to 60, something like that. I don't know. It's been a while. And I said, well, shit, I'm going to go. And I asked my friends, I said, hey, y'all want to go to WrestleMania this weekend? And I was like, well, not on such short notice. I thought you weren't going, Brandon. I said, well, I didn't think I was either. And apparently I am. So I said, it's my one shot to go because it's the closest state to where I live at. So damn right I took advantage of it. Well, ain't nothing going to happen to me. I'm just going to drive there, attend the event, then leave. Hang out with the WWE Universe and get my ass out of there. What's going to happen? Ain't nobody going to kidnap me or anything like that. Who would want to? Who would want to kidnap me? I'm not a female. I'm a dude, minimum wage type of guy. So who the fuck would want to kidnap me? Shit. Kidnapping me might be beneficial to my well-being. I might end up in the Bahamas or somewhere. Shoot. Like, well, this is all right. But that WrestleMania 27, I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, see, people forget that it was The Rock's first WrestleMania appearance in years. People forget that. People take that for granted now. But at the time, like I said, it was his first ever appearance at a WrestleMania in like 7 years or so. And that was a big deal. Everybody wanted to see The Rock, him cutting a promo. This is before it got old, him coming back every year. This was the first time him and Cena interacting and things like that. So I got to saw all the superstars in person like that with my own eyes. So that was cool. And the crowd was amazing. There were so many people there. It was so cool. Also, it was Edge's last match. People forget that too. It was Edge's last match. The main event sucked, but The Rock came out there and things like that. For the Rock's first appearance at a WrestleMania in 7 years, it was pretty cool for that. Undertaker Triple H had a really good match, but it was the one before their Hell in a Cell match, which I'll probably get into on here. So that was my personal WrestleMania experience as far as being there in attendance goes. I plan to go in the future. Next time I go, I want to take like the wife with me or something if I'm unfortunate to have a wife someday. I think it'd be kind of cool to take her to something like that. I could look back and say, I went to 27 and I went to 30-something or 40-something, whatever the case. They kind of dropped the number, but it don't matter. Sometimes they drop the number. You realize, like, they didn't call WrestleMania 32. They just called it WrestleMania. And the one before that, they called it WrestleMania Play Button, But when WrestleMania 35 comes around, I guarantee you they're going to call it the 35th anniversary of WrestleMania. WrestleMania 40, the 40th anniversary. So they might drop the number, but you'll get it back every 5 WrestleMania shows. So it don't really matter. So I'm going to talk about some of my WrestleMania memories. I just talked about the one I actually went to. But growing up, the first WrestleMania I watched was, on VHS tape back in the day. I'll tell you very quickly how I became a wrestling fan. It was late '89, early 1990. I was 5 or 6 years old, something like that. And yeah, this is before the internet took off and things like that. So there weren't much to do, and I always been a fan of like fighting and boxing and stuff like that. And I went to the local video rental store, and they had Hulkamania video, kind of like the modern day version of John Cena, the best of John Cena video. But this was the best of Hogan, called Hulkamania. So I rented that and watched it and fell in love with Hulkamania. So I was a Hulkamaniac. That's what drew me into wrestling, as with a lot of people. If it weren't for that, I probably would have ended up maybe a WCW fan more so, but it's all Hogan's fault, you know. So I was born, raised WWF fan. I'm a WWF guy. It's Hogan's fault. And then I started watching WWF on cable, and I was like, where the fuck is Hogan at? And then I channel surfed. I said, oh, he's on WCW Saturday night. You know, that's where they go when they disappear. Because you remember back in the day when a superstar, even today, when they disappear off the show, you have no idea where they go unless you read, you know, wrestling news and shit. But back then you didn't know. You're like, where'd he go? Especially as a kid. Man, I turned WCW. I was like, there's Hogan. There's Macho Man. That's where they went to. That shit was so funny. But I was like, come back, dude. Come back. What are you thinking? Because my last memory of Hogan was at WrestleMania 8 with Sid Justice. And you remember that promo that Hogan cut before the match where he was shaking hands with Vince McMahon. That backstage segment is before Mr. McMahon character. And he said, and Vince McMahon was like, thank you, Hogan, and thank you for WrestleMania, and thank you for the memories. It's kind of like his goodbye speech, you know. And I thought he was gone. You know, I see him Thunder in Paradise floating around the boat and slamming Andre's son, supposedly, like, you know, ain't son, you know, Paul White, Big Show. Anyway, WrestleMania 4 was the first WrestleMania I seen on VHS, and that's where I came to love Macho Man Randy Savage. You know, a lot of people say their favorite match was Steamboat and Savage from WrestleMania 3. That's one of mine as well, but I actually say Macho Man versus Ted DiBiase, WrestleMania 4, the championship finals. That's my favorite. That's my favorite WrestleMania match and moment of all time. Because Randy, you know, Macho Man was the man that year. He finally won the big title, and he carried the company that year while Hogan was off filming that movie with Zeus, No Holds Barred, you know, things like that. So it was Macho Man's year, you know, and I thought that was pretty cool. Because after that, Macho Man won the title a couple of times in WWF, but it wasn't the same. Because Macho Man, I always liked Macho Man at the 80s better, even though I think his character was a little, I don't know, I liked his character in the 90s as a kid, everybody did, but I like his work ethic better. He was a better wrestler in the 80s, and I kind of liked the heel Macho Man, but he was a babyface at WrestleMania 4. And when he already had 3 previous matches, I believe it was 3 previous, then he had his 4th with DiBiase. It was a fine match, but, you know, it was a pretty good match. No Ricky and Savage, of course, but it was a damn good match. Man, it came so close, and Andre the Giant was interfering. You just didn't know what was going to happen. And then the Macho Man won the title, and first thing he did was gave it to Elizabeth, his wife, and they were married at the time. Then they got married on camera later. But anyway, so he gave it to Elizabeth, and Hogan's in there hogging the spotlight. Man, it was great. It was some good stuff. I said, that's who should have the title. You know, Macho Man. You know, Hogan, Hulkamania got me into it, but that was just a gateway to Macho Man. I was a Macho Man guy, you know. But thanks to Hogan for getting me into the shit in the first place. But in WrestleMania 5, Macho Man had to drop the title to Hogan, and I was so against that, man. That was so funny because I always liked heels. And that was the start of it. Because heel Randy Savage, the Mega Powers, they broke up. It was him versus Hulk Hogan. And I did not want Hogan to win that title back. I said, leave it on Macho Man. Shit. And it was kind of 50-50. I mean, yes, Savage was the heel, but you had Miss Elizabeth out there in a mutual corner. You know, it wasn't like she just jumped ship to Hogan. She was kind of confused. It kind of made it a little bit more realistic, you know, because back then, a heel was justified in what he was doing, or at least he thought so. He weren't just a, quote, bad guy. He actually thought he was doing the right thing. He was justified in what he was doing. He felt like Hogan was smooching on his woman, and that's why he turned on him, even though he might have been mistaken or whatever. It's just storyline. But back then, like I said, back then, heels didn't think they were bad. they had reasons to justify why they were doing good. It just wasn't. They were just mistaken, basically. Kind of like the Jedi and the Sith. The Jedi and the Sith's not really the bad guys. They're just a different philosophy, you know. But however, in the Star Wars universe, they are the wrong side. Sure, they're the wrong side, but they believe in what they're doing. So they're not thinking like, oh, I'm so bad, I'm so bad. This is the right thing to do, is how they're thinking. That's how WWF heels used to think. And let me see, this is no particular order or anything, but while we're on Randy Savage, another favorite was Macho Man Randy Savage versus the Ultimate Warrior in a retirement match, in the retirement match. And that was such a good match. You know, I missed Ultimate. I'm a big Ultimate Warrior fan. You know, Macho Man's #1. Warrior would probably be like #4 or so. But, you know, at the time I was pulling for Macho Man, of course. But, you know, Randy passed. You know, Ultimate Warrior said that Randy was his favorite guy to work with. And he wasn't just saying that. A lot of people say that about Macho Man because he knew how to sell. He knew how to carry a match. He cared about it. He's somebody you want to work with. He's a very good worker, you know. And that's what I saw back in WrestleMania, the earlier WrestleMania. I noticed that, you know, because when he fought Hogan at WrestleMania 5, the Mega Powers collide. You know, I was like, Hogan's got like 3 moves and Macho Man's doing all the work. You know, Macho Man doing all the work. And I just didn't understand why he lost, you know, because back then I thought it was real. So Macho Man, Ultimate Warrior, retirement match, very good match. Randy lost. Macho Man lost the match, but he came back, you know, as a commentator, and he got reinstated, and he had a feud with Jake the Snake. But at the retirement match, he lost. The match was really good because nobody could beat the Ultimate Warrior. You know, Ultimate Warrior is supposed to be the next big thing, and he would have been if he didn't screw things up with Vince McMahon or whatever the conflict was. But it was cool because you couldn't beat the Ultimate Warrior storyline. And Macho Man, with his epic logic, dropped like 10 flying elbows on the Ultimate Warrior, and Ultimate Warrior just kicked right out. But that's the logical thing to do. It's like, I mean, it's kind of stupid he kicked out, but it's like, okay, he's unbeatable, so I'm going to hit him with my finisher 10 times. He did. He's like, elbow, 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 on. Warrior just kicked out. I'm like, that kind of exposed the business to me. I was like, well, no, because at the time you think they have some kind of magical powers or some shit. But it was crazy, dude. I think the way Warrior pinned Hogan at WrestleMania 6, I think that was cool. People, because Hogan didn't kick out in time, but he almost did. You know, and that's a good way to put somebody over, I think, sometimes, especially with Hogan and Warrior. You know, it's like he just barely beat him. So, let me see. Ultimate Warrior, Randy Savage, WrestleMania 7. That was awesome match to this day. I'll talk about another Randy Savage match, and then I'm going to move on. Randy Savage, Ric Flair, WrestleMania 8. The storyline to that match was great because back in the day, everybody wanted to see Ric Flair and the Macho Man have a match together because they were both in different promotions. And I didn't really think of it that way at the time, being just a WWF solo fan, but I knew that Ric Flair was from a different company and he was the real world's champion. So that was a very interesting match, especially the story built up to it where Ric Flair was claiming that he was with Miss Elizabeth first and he had pictures of Miss Elizabeth. It was like Miss Elizabeth was the hood rat back then, the ring rat back then. It's looking at it now, but I thought it was a damn good story build up to it. You really felt for Macho Man. Anybody can relate to that. Somebody fucking with your girlfriend or your wife, taking pictures with your wife, talking about he had her first. And Macho Man was pissed. That's what I liked about Macho Man. Macho Man at WrestleMania 8, he didn't come down the entranceway, you know, doing like that and showing off. He fucking ran to the ring like Forrest Gump and started knocking the hell out of Ric Flair. That's believability. Nowadays in wrestling, people have a heated feud, and the first thing they do is a head lock up. You're like, okay, Back then, it was believable. You fucking my wife, I'm going to beat your ass. You know, the way they started off with. Okay, another example is Randy Orton, Triple H, WrestleMania 25. Orton kissed Stephanie there. He punk kicked McMahon. Hatred between them. What's the first thing they do? A collar and elbow tie up. You know, it's just stupid. John Cena hates he's mad. He won't run out there and put you in the headlock. That's not realistic. Ric Flair, Savage, WrestleMania 8. It was a great match. A lot of storytelling. The cool thing was Ric Flair attacked Macho Man's leg half the match, his limb there, and Macho Man sold it the whole match. And that's what I'm saying. Macho Man was one of the greatest sellers. Some people look at Macho Man and say, well, he was a character or whatever. He was both. He was both. Watch the Macho Man documentary if you don't believe me. But he's a type A personality, and I kind of try to model myself after him. Hard worker. You want to get the shit done right. Now, some people say he takes the stuff too seriously, but I wouldn't say that. I would be proud of my work if I was him, because he bust his ass and he sold that that leg injury like no tomorrow. And he was trying to hit Kurt Hennig like that, Mr. Perfect. Perfect was, it's just great. I watched that WrestleMania so many times on VHS tape back then because, it wasn't much else going on in the relaxed world that we lived in back then, in the early 90s. Let me see. Let me jump. Another WrestleMania memory match will be Bret Hart, Steve Austin, WrestleMania 13. Of course, that's everybody's favorite, as well as mine. That match told a story. It had the double turn in it, which I was an Austin fan anyway by that point. A lot of people were because we got tired of hearing Bret complain and bitch and moan every week. And, I love heel Austin of 97. Was it 97? Yeah. 96 to 97. I love that heel Austin because he'd come out there and he'd say, Bret Hart, all you do is come out here and cry and run your mouth. It was funny, man, So Austin and Bret had that match, and it was like the perfect ending, dude, because I was a big Bret Hart fan growing up, more so than Shawn Michaels. I was a Bret Hart guy than Shawn Michaels. And, man, he had the only time I liked Shawn Michaels was at WrestleMania 12 time. I was kind of pulling for HBK. I did like HBK growing up, but I was just more of a Bret fan. Just not in that one match with at WrestleMania 12 because I thought it was HBK's time. But at WrestleMania, Steve Austin and Bret, that was perfect ending, man. He's Bret Hart, greatest of all time in his own right. He's got Steve Austin in the sharpshooter, man. And Austin's never going to quit. He's never going to give up. You're thinking he's got to tap out. He has to tap out. But what does he do? He passes out in a pool of his own blood. I was like, that is awesome, because Bret won the match, but he didn't win the match. You know what I'm saying? So that's what was so cool about it at the time. And what it did, it made the fans respect Austin, and that's when the double turn happened. Austin the babyface, Bret Hart more so the heel because Bret was kind of bitter about that. But that's how you build up a strong babyface. You keep him heel like that, and you build respect. Like eventually he'll start winning matches and stop fucking around, shucking and diving, running and hiding, and then people start getting behind him. That's how Triple H became a babyface. But Austin Bret, that's how Austin became a babyface. It was perfect. He was heel a couple of years or so. And he never gave up, and the fans got right behind him, which he had a lot of momentum going into it anyway. But like I said, that's how you build somebody up. Roman Reigns, you can't just have him out there like Rocky Maivia and expect everybody to love the guy. He should have been a heel since past WrestleMania. Now they should be turning babyface, and people probably would have respected him more. But what do I know? I'm just some dude, on YouTube. I don't know shit. But let me see. So Austin Bret, WrestleMania 13, probably the greatest match of all time. As far as storytelling and all that stuff goes. Then again, you can argue, well, Savage Steamboat was innovative at the time. Because you can watch it now and say, well, that match was weren't, it's good, but it's kind of common now, I guess. But at the time, it was innovative. People weren't used to seeing shit like that. And Savage Steamboat stole the show. In my opinion, still the best match when you compare it to any other match of the modern era, especially. Because you just got to pay attention to the storytelling and, move for move and all the thought and effort they both put into the match. So, of course, Savage lost the match, unfortunately, but that's fine. He won the title the next year. He won the big title the next year. It was a good way to put Steamboat over. And let me see. I know I smoke. I want to quit. I'll quit for the right girlfriend. Seriously, I would. Because then I have love in my heart and inspiration. Things like that. WrestleMania 12, the Iron Man match. Bret, Shawn Michaels. People nowadays say it was overrated. But back then, when I was a kid, I was 12. I'm the same age as WrestleMania, so I was 12. I was so looking forward to the match, man. I didn't know who to go for, but at the time, even at that time, I appreciated, a good wrestling match. I was like, man, this match is going to be killer, an hour of, I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. And we all know how that turned out. HBK won the title, and Vince McMahon said, the boyhood dream has come true for Shawn Michaels, Man, that was some of the best wrestling memories I ever had growing up as a kid, man, because I was 12 years old and in the prime of my youth, I guess, loving wrestling. Still love wrestling. But nothing beats wrestling times as you were growing up. And that was a cool time because HBK, Shawn Michaels won the Royal Rumble that year. And see, I was a Shawn Michaels fan because he was a good worker, like a Seth Rollins. He could sell, man. And it's like he was in the Rumble match. I think he was number 2, him and the Bulldog, or that might have been the year before. But either way, he came in early both Rumble years, and he was a smaller guy, and you would wonder, like, how in the hell would he win the Rumble? But it was believable because he has so many moves, and he could just wiggle out of shit, skinning the cat, get back in the ring, super kick everybody out there. He super kicked Big Daddy Cool Diesel out the ring. Awesome stuff. Shawn Michaels was believable when he fought bigger guys because he had defense. He had good defense. He would outsmart you. It was like a cat versus a dog. But yeah, the Iron Man match, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, man. Like I said, I was more of a Bret Hart fan, but it was time for Bret to pass the torch because you never seen Shawn Michaels as the world champion before. So that was pretty cool to me. Great time to be a fan. Another WrestleMania memory moment would be Austin versus The Rock. WrestleMania X7, 17. My favorite WrestleMania, in fact. At least one of my favorites. Top 3 favorites. Because I watched that on pay-per-view. I was with my friends. Teenager, I was 17. WrestleMania 17. Great time. Great time. We had a ball that night, man. And it was in the heart of the Attitude Era. Man, you had Austin and The Rock both in their primes. They went out there and just tore the house down. That was a great match. There was a big botch at the start of the match. I think The Rock was going to do a running clothesline, and he did. He didn't connect with Austin correctly, but Austin fell back like he took it. Big botch. But other than that, it was a very exciting match. And they're in the Hoosier Dome. They were in Texas that year. It might have been the Hoosier Dome. But they were in Texas that year, and everybody's behind Austin, and it was a great build-up to the match because Austin ain't had the title in about a year or so, and he's like, I got to win this match. I'll do whatever it takes. And he beat the shit out of The Rock in that WrestleMania match. They hit hard, man, because that's what I liked about them so much. They wanted it to look good because, wrestling's predetermined and fake, whatever. But backstage, Austin and The Rock were saying, hey, let's hit each other hard. Let's make it look good. They do stuff like that. They want to make it look good. And they just beat the shit out of each other. The only thing I didn't like was the ending of the match. Well, actually, it was actually pretty good. It was just the aftermath of that match. Austin won the title because he shook hands with Vince McMahon's assistants after the handshake, beat the shit out of The Rock. McMahon done the 3 count, I believe, and Austin won the title and turned heel. that was cool. It's just the aftermath, like the story, the heel turn for Austin after that Mania was not good. It was a bad year for Austin as a heel. Everybody wanted to see Austin as a babyface, but that shocking moment at WrestleMania 17 was awesome. Also at WrestleMania 17, I believe it was TLC 2, Tables, Ladders, and Chairs match. I'm trying to remember everybody that was in it. I should have watched it before I done this video. I'm pretty sure it was the Dudleys, the Hardys, and there was another Edge and Christian. And man, they tore that house down. When Edge did the spear off the ladder, I think it was to one of the Hardys, and man, that was awesome. Just a very awesome ladder match. One of the best ladder matches you ever see. It's like fucking every time they talk bad about wrestling on ESPN, which they don't do that anymore, but when they used to, or on Fox News when they talk bad about the wrestling business, they always show highlights from that TLC match from WrestleMania 17 because it was so gory, vicious, and violent, you know. So, and it's not like that all the time. Them boys just went all out and stole the show, and that's what's cool about it. It's still in the show, especially if you're not the main event. You want to steal the show, and that's exactly what they did. Another quick favorite that comes to mind is Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle. WrestleMania Goes Hollywood. What was that? WrestleMania 21. Kurt Angle, the Olympic hero, versus Shawn Michaels. That was a match I wanted to see personally. I really wanted to see that match. By this time, I wasn't really an HBK fan anymore. That was a childhood thing. HBK was the 90s, you know, even though he had a very good run in the 2000s. I just got tired of seeing him, quite frankly. But so by then, I was a Kurt Angle fan, and I could not wait. Me and my friend Sean and Jonathan, we watched WrestleMania 21, and they were like, "You going for Shawn Michaels?" I said, "Hell no, I'm going for Kurt Angle." And Kurt Angle was the villain. I mean, I love that match, dude. It was so good. Them going back and forth, and it was a great match, and Kurt Angle won that match, by the way. So it was really good. Well, the thing was, it was more of a traditional wrestling match. A lot of drop toe holds and headlocks and submission, amateur wrestling type. And the fans didn't know how. The fans, only the older fans like myself could appreciate it because they thought it was going to be like a big spot fest. And it was in a lot of ways, but it was kind of slow paced too, but it was like a traditional grappling match. And I like that. That's how they should do it. You know, them two legends like that. And I hope Kurt Angle comes back to WWE for one last run. That'd be cool. But yeah, the mid-2000s, big Kurt Angle fan, man. And another favorite, speaking of Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, WrestleMania 19. I was pulling for Kurt. I always liked Kurt Angle. You know, when he came out there as a heel, I just always like heels better. You like heels more as you get older, I guess. But I just liked Kurt Angle. He was cool. You know, my kind of wrestler. That's the kind of wrestler I would be. You know, because he's not that big of a guy. He's just very technical, and I'd never be a wrestler. But if I was, that would probably be my style. And man, him and Brock, they had an incredible match at WrestleMania 19. You know, I think Brock Lesnar he botched that maneuver towards the end of it. What was it? 5-star splash, I believe it was. And anyway, he just way off target. And then he was not going to hit Kurt. Kurt was too far away, and Kurt maneuvered out the way to make it look better because he knew Brock was making a mistake. But other than that, it was a very good technical match because they both had amateur wrestling backgrounds. And people believed in Kurt. Like, well, how can Kurt beat Brock Lesnar? It's because of his defense, that amateur style, you know. He's like a cat. It's like a cat versus a dog. The cat's smarter type of thing. And that's just, you know, another match that stands out. Kurt Angle, HBK, 21. Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, 19. WrestleMania 18. The Rock versus Hulk Hogan, you know. Or Hollywood Hogan, as he was billed that time. No, WWF called him Hollywood Hulk Hogan. But you remember in WCW, they called him just Hollywood Hogan. That was Icon versus Icon. I could not believe. I mean, I don't even know if I got the time and energy to talk about this one. Might make a part 2 to this, but man, that was so cool. You know, when WWF bought WCW, I was like, when's the NWO gonna come in? You know, and the Invasion angle sucked and all that stuff. We all know that. But when Hogan finally appeared on Raw after what, 9 years or so. Man, that was so cool just to see him there. It was just unbelievable to me at the time. Kind of like when Bischoff was the Raw GM, like, you know, he ain't supposed to be there, but he is type of thing. Man, Hogan came out there and just, he was playing the heel, the bad guy, trashing the audience. I'm like, you WWF fans turned on me. That's why I left. Perfect story. Good promo. And, but really, that's just bullshit. But it was just a good promo. And, truth is, he left for the money. Well, he wanted to retire. That retirement speech he gave to Vince at WrestleMania 8 was legit. It's just that he needed money and he wanted blah, blah, blah. But anyway, he trashed the fans on Raw. Out comes The Rock, man. The Rock of all people. You're like, oh, shit. And JR, Jim Ross calling, man, the first time we ever seen it. And this was true. I mean, we were into this stuff back then. My fellow wrestling fans. Back then, we were so into it. And it was so hot. Wrestling was so hot back then. You're talking about 7.0 ratings, 8.0 ratings, man. You got Hollywood Hogan and The Rock stare down. First time ever. Old blood, new blood. Man, that was so cool. I didn't know who to go for. I was kind of pulling for The Rock at the time. Yeah, more so because you know, I was never really a big – I liked Hogan growing up, like I said, but he was more like a gateway into wrestling. But I liked Hogan. He just wouldn't – he wouldn't be in my top 5, you know. Neither would The Rock. I don't think so. No, they'd be in my top 10. So I was kind of going for The Rock in that match in a way, but I grew up with Hogan more so. So I didn't know. I just knew it was going to be a hell of a match. And the match wasn't – I thought the match was okay, actually. A lot of people say, well, the match wasn't all that. I thought it was okay. You know, at the start of the match, The Rock is kind of too fast-paced for Hogan. And Hogan's like, slow down, brother. Goddamn, I'm trying to keep up with you. But I thought it was okay, actually. And then The Rock won the match, rightfully so. He was putting over, he's passing the torch to The Rock. And then The Rock goes off to Hollywood. I'm like, okay. And then, so they shake hands, they embrace. NWO runs out there and they beat down Hogan for being so nice to The Rock. And then The Rock jumps back in the ring and helps Hogan. Then Hogan turns into a good guy, babyface with The Rock. And they tear it up on SmackDown. And they had a rematch the following year at, I think, No Way Out 2003. Yeah. That match was okay. That's where Hogan got his win back. You know, he just had to get his win back. But at WrestleMania, The Rock won. And to be honest with you, it really don't matter who won that match. It was just the build-up, the excitement, the match in general. And the crowd, man. The crowd was crazy during that match. Very, very crazy. You know, you watch matches like that and you just think like, you know, what happened? Even you newer fans probably watch them older matches that I grew up with and be like, damn, what happened? You guys had it good back then. And crowd react, all that star power, all that stuff. Let me see. I'm gonna go over a couple more WrestleMania. I'll probably make a part 2. I'm getting exhausted. All right. Well, see, I'll talk about Taker losing the streak, WrestleMania 30. But I don't really agree with that. You know, it wasn't my favorite at all, but it's definitely a memory and a shocking moment, that's for sure. Okay, you have WrestleMania 30 years in the making. The Undertaker never lost at WrestleMania, never. And he had this poor build-up with Brock Lesnar. And everybody thought, like, well, he's just going to go in there and beat Brock. No big deal. It was set up like The Undertaker was just going to win. You know, the match sucked. It sucked bad. I'm like, when's this match going to be over with? The crowd was dead. Nobody was into it. Taker never lost at WrestleMania. Never. Then out of the blue, Brock pins Taker after 3 F5s. But hell, they kick out of so many finishers, you never know. And man, Brock pinned the Undertaker, and the crowd went just like stunned, like in shock, including myself. I was watching on the WWE Network, and I was just shocked, man, in shock, man, just for a few minutes there. Then I just got mad. I just felt this anger come over me like panicking Anakin. I was just getting all mad inside because I always thought the streak should never end, and it shouldn't have, because Taker's been at WrestleMania since then, and there's no streak on the line. It's not a special anymore, so they lost the streak. And the only reason they did that was to hype up the WWE Network, have something shocking happen. But in turn, it did help Brock Lesnar. I see why they did it. I understand why it happened that way. So I don't have a problem with it anymore. It's just when it happened, it just took a while to digest. I did not agree with it. And if it was up to me, I would have never broken the streak unless it was his final match. Because he lost the streak, and he's there the next year fighting Bray Wyatt, excuse me. Fighting Bray Wyatt the next year, and then he's going to fight whoever this coming year, which will probably be his retirement match, I would think. That's the only way you can build the Undertaker. Undertaker don't have the streak anymore. He's not going to be champion. So how can you build the Undertaker? How can you get people excited for the Undertaker at WrestleMania? Say it's his retirement match. He could do like Ric Flair did a few years ago, be like, hey, if I lose a match, I'm going to retire. Put a retirement match. I think that would be a good draw. People are saying it's rumored it's going to be Undertaker John Cena this year rather. And I'm not a fan of that match at all. But if they say something like, well, hey, Undertaker, if you lose, you have to retire. Yeah, that makes it interesting. There's something at stake there. But I think that kind of makes it. Well, no, because Taker could win, and then the next year they could bring it up like, well, if you lose, you're going to have to retire. I don't know. Taker could be like, hey, next time I lose, I'll retire. I'll get out this motherfucker. So Taker losing the streak, shocker, man, big shocker. That might have been the biggest shocker in WrestleMania. May have been, at least in recent memory. Because nobody thought Taker. Well, I mean, people thought Taker. I mean, he didn't lose it to CM Punk. He didn't lose it to Triple H. Nobody. I'm like, oh, why would he lose it to Brock? They could have built up Brock a different way. Brock could have just been a destroyer from the get-go. But no, they had to do this shit. Do it this way. Now, I'm cool with it now. I don't agree with it, but it does work, I just think they could have built up Brock without him taking a streak. And Taker could have retired with the streak because he didn't have that many title runs, They could be like, well, he was undefeated at WrestleMania. That could have been his thing. But, it's all good. But, yeah, WrestleMania 28, Undertaker, Triple H, Hell in a Cell, HBK is the guest referee. You talk about storytelling and a badass match. That was it. People need to go back and watch that match. I think people just overlooked it or something because that match was awesome. Especially HBK's facial expressions, his selling in that match, because Triple H was beating the shit out of Taker with a chair, and HBK was like, no. The only spot I didn't like in the match, it's kind of cool, but it's kind of bullshit. Taker pushed Shawn Michaels, the ref, and Shawn Michaels super kicked. I say super kick, not say Sweet Chin Music. Fuck that. Shawn Michaels super kicked Undertaker. Undertaker's days. Triple H puts him in the pedigree. And Undertaker kicks out. And it was a fast count. I'm like, man, that's such horse shit. How you going to kick out the super kick and the pedigree right after one another? So it was kind of cool if that was ending the streak, I guess. But I just thought that was kind of bullshit. But Undertaker had marks up and down his body, man, where Triple H was hitting him so hard and stuff. And there was a spot in the match where Triple H had the sledgehammer, and he was about to crush Undertaker's skull in. I mean, he was about to hit him. And then right at the last second, HBK stopped him. Of course, you know, you can't have murder on pay-per-view. It's just wrestling. But, man, he bought into it. You're like, man, he's going to kill him. He would have killed him in storyline. You know, and that was supposed to be the end of an era. And the next year, Undertaker's right back. Triple H is right back. HBK was back, too, as Triple H's, I don't want to say manager, but he was ringside with Triple H versus Brock in that match where Brock lost. And then suddenly Brock beat Taker the year after, but whatever. You know, Brock started listening to some Rocky soundtracks and got motivated. Anyway, let me see. WrestleMania 25, HBK Undertaker, magical match. You know, Undertaker won. Spot by spot, awesome match, awesome storytelling. You got two of the greatest of all time. Two that never went to WCW. I know Taker didn't start in WWF, but once he got there, he didn't leave. Awesome match, you know, all the way through. Exciting. That's the key word with wrestling is exciting. You want to make it exciting. You know, that's the problem with wrestling nowadays. Most of the time, it's not exciting. The WrestleManias are usually exciting. Man, HBK, Undertaker, their first match, that was cool. Their second match was good, really good, actually. It just wasn't as special, you know. Nothing is as good as the original, like how movies go most of the time. But, yeah, I mean, it's hard. It was hard to top that original match anyway. So, another favorite, Taker, Michaels, WrestleMania 25. And while we're talking about WrestleMania 25, another favorite of mine, which is not a favorite of other people I know, was Randy Orton versus Triple H. The story, the build-up to the match was good. Most people agree on that, where Triple H broke into Orton's house and you had people in there washing clothes at midnight. I don't know. You know, Orton could be some kind of drug lord or something we don't know about. But this is when Randy Orton was in his prime this year. This is when he had the IED disorder and he was snapping and going crazy and he punk kicked Vince McMahon. He kissed that would be crazy if he kissed Triple H. He kissed Stephanie McMahon while Triple H was handcuffed. This was the Orton I like, man. When he had the bald head, he was kind of military-like and fucking crazy as shit. And him and that build-up he had with Triple H was awesome, man. And their match at WrestleMania 25 was kind of lackluster, but that's because it came after that's because it came after HBK Undertaker match. That's why. But if you kind of ignore that and watch it separately, it wasn't that bad of a match. It could have been better, but I just like Orton that year. He was a badass heel that year. You know, he had the militant thing going on and psycho shit going on, and you didn't know what to expect. And I just realized I was not in HD. Well, not high bandwidth. Well, shit. Well, anyway, I think that's enough talk for wrestling now. I have plenty more WrestleMania memories, moments, plenty. I left out a lot. So there's going to be a part 2, I would say. Shawn Michaels versus Diesel, Big Daddy Cool, boo, boo, WrestleMania 11. People say that sucked, but I was so into wrestling as a fan, kid growing up. I wasn't thinking like that, and I just bought into it, and I thought it was cool, especially with Big Daddy Cool Diesel coming out there with Pamela Anderson and her puppies, man. That was some good stuff back then. I don't care what nobody says. I like 94 and 95. You know, I like those years. And a lot of WWF loyal people did like those years because we didn't really know the product was stale. You know, we did, but we stuck with it. That was the thing. We believed in it. We stuck with it. And I didn't think that match was that bad. So, yeah, Diesel, Shawn Michaels. You know, it's not my favorite, but it's just a memory that stands out. And we'll talk about Bret Hart, Yokozuna, WrestleMania 10, and a few other of my favorites in the next time we talk about WrestleMania, greatest moments, greatest memories, whatever the fuck. This is Team B member Brandon going solo and bald. Y'all take care.